The Marvel Cinematic Universe has clearly experienced massive success. However, that doesn't mean the studio's sprawling saga is devoid of missteps. From unfortunate casting decisions to creative control issues, here are some of the regrets that the people behind the franchise have had about the universe they helped create. Thor: The Dark World has not enjoyed the best reputation among MCU movies. Not only did it get the worst reviews of any feature in the franchise, but even its own director, Alan Taylor, has publicly expressed disappointment over how the project turned out. Specifically, Taylor has been pretty open about how he didn't end up having as much of a creative impact on the production as he wanted. The first inkling of Taylor having a difficult experience on the project came up as early as October 2013, when the director, while promoting the theatrical release of The Dark World, revealed that he and Marvel Studios had disagreements over how to deliver exposition throughout the movie. Taylor would get more explicit in later interviews, coming right out and saying that the final cut of the movie was different from what he initially wanted. Taylor explained to Uproxx, "The Marvel experience was particularly wrenching because I was sort of given absolute freedom while we were shooting. And then in post, it turned into a different movie. So that is something I hope never to repeat and don't wish upon anybody else." Based on that quote, it sounds like Taylor definitely won't be directing any Marvel movies in the near future, unless, of course, he has a serious heart-to-heart with executives at the studio.
I wish I could trust you.
It took a few MCU appearances for the franchise to really get the God of Thunder right. Thor Ragnarok solidified what this character was all about. But before then, Thor was on shakier ground. The character was a little more traditional in his initial outings, and he lacked the consistently engaging and subversive personalities that his fellow Avengers received. One of several ways Thor's earlier appearances came up short was in a tiny detail from the first Thor movie, one related to Chris Hemsworth's eyebrows. Yes, his eyebrows. This revelation came directly from the president of Marvel Studios, Mr. Kevin Feige himself. He said that if he could go back in time and change one thing about the film, it would be that they would not have dyed Hemsworth's eyebrows blonde. While most viewers weren't bothered by, or even noticed, Thor's light eyebrows, others had a more extreme reaction.
Oh my God.
Feige further explained his feelings about the dye job to Uproxx. "Hemsworth was great and awesome and pulled it off, but there are a couple of shots I watch and I'm like, oh my God, that poor guy. We made him freaking dye his eyebrows. That's ridiculous." And I can laugh about it now because Hemsworth is Thor and he doesn't need long hair or a cape or a hammer or two eyeballs to be Thor. When you're making a movie, you have to make some tough decisions. Nobody knows this better than writer-director James Gunn, who's never been shy when it comes to talking about personal favorite scenes and lines that didn't make the final cut of his various directorial efforts. In terms of his first motion picture for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he openly talked about how one of his favorite lines in Guardians of the Galaxy was omitted from the film's final cut. The line in question is a follow-up to a discussion that was used in the movie, in which Peter Quill notes that he comes from a planet of outlaws. Drax responds that this sounds like a place he'd like to explore, which inspires Peter to casually say that Drax should come and visit sometime. In the final cut, this is the end of their exchange. However, originally, Drax also noted that while he was on Earth, he would like to, quote, kill many people there. The brutal joke ended up on the cutting room floor, but Gunn loves the line so much that he said the following on Twitter: "I so want to George Lucas it back in, I can't tell you." That makes it pretty apparent that this is one line Gunn regrets leaving behind from the theatrical version of Guardians of the Galaxy. While Gunn might feel some disappointment about this one missed moment, Drax still delivered some of our favorite lines of the movie.
"You're an imbecile."
Filmmaker Louis Leterrier has had a career resurgence in recent years, thanks to his work directing episodes of Netflix TV shows like The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance and Lupin. However, long before those programs, Leterrier helmed big-budget blockbusters like the second Marvel Cinematic Universe movie ever, The Incredible Hulk. That feature ended up becoming an odd duck in the MCU pantheon thanks to a variety of factors, including how the film's lead actor, Edward Norton, never reprised the role again, as well as its distribution rights belonging to Universal Pictures. Leterrier himself has contributed to the weird reputation of the Incredible Hulk by openly expressing his regrets about shortcomings with the project. Leterrier told HuffPost back in 2013, "I've started movies without screenplays, both on Clash of the Titans and on Hulk, and that is tremendously stressful because you have a tendency to overcompensate with effects. You haven't tested it in your head, you didn't run it over and over again and figure it out." He also noted that some parts of the Incredible Hulk are more identifiably his than others. Leterrier explained, "The first half of the movie is really mine, and the second half is the studio's expected Hulk movie. Two giants kicking each other's ass." The Incredible Hulk didn't quite match people's expectations, either critically or financially, and it apparently didn't reach Leterrier's own ambitions either. Phil Coulson became such a beloved character during his time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that many fans, upon seeing him perish at Loki's hand in the Avengers, wanted nothing more than for him to return. Well, they got their wish, and then some, since Coulson was brought back for the ABC TV series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Co-created by Avengers director Joss Whedon. The decision to resurrect this character inspired as many fans as it did detractors, with skeptics opining that going down this route was a cheap storytelling ploy. Surprisingly, Whedon himself actually fell into the latter camp. In the spring of 2015, Whedon told Mental Floss that bringing back Coulson removed, quote, "some of the punch out of his death scene for me." He then went on to say that the whole ordeal of reviving Coulson reflected some of his own issues with blockbuster storytelling. During his Mental Floss interview, Whedon elaborated on the topic. "It's difficult because you're living in a franchise world. You can't kill anyone or anybody significant. I think it's disingenuous to say, we're going to fight this great battle, but there's not going to be any loss. So my feeling in these situations with Marvel is that if somebody has to be placed on the altar and sacrificed, I'll let you guys decide if they stay there." While Coulson returning may have been a dream come true for some fans, for Whedon, it was a much more complicated experience that brought him moments of reflection and regret. Still, plenty of fans had another reaction to Coulson's resurrection.
Cool.
In his second appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Andy Serkis made a memorable splash as Ulysses Klaue. And in a rare live-action turn from the actor in a blockbuster movie, Serkis proved he didn't need motion capture to bring the goods to the big screen. Throughout a film that covered some very heavy material, Klaue provided moments of welcome levity during his reprisal of the Hathaway song What Is Love, and in his joy about sending a bevy of cash flying in every direction during a casino fight.
I made it rain!
Klaue proved such an enjoyable presence in the film, in fact, that even Black Panther writer-director Ryan Coogler regrets killing off the character in the middle of the movie. A few months after Black Panther hit theaters, Coogler told the Toronto Sun, "I like Klaue. I was bugged by having to do that. It's tough when you have to kill characters off, and I really did love that character. I love Andy. He's a lovely person." But again, it's one of those things where when you've got so many people in a movie, some of them have to go. It's understandable that Coogler would want to keep Klaue around, given how positively the villain was received. However, at the very least, Coogler can take solace in knowing that he wrote a character who's so memorable that people miss him when he's gone. When it came time for Marvel to make a live-action feature film adaptation of Doctor Strange, there were several thorny elements of the classic version of the superhero that needed to be ironed out. Chiefly, the Doctor Strange story originally had a problematic approach to Eastern culture that included the initial incarnation of Wong as merely being a manservant. Another issue concerned the character of the Ancient One, a mentor who, if executed wrong, could have been seen as a wizened Asian master stereotype. Marvel's decision on how to approach the character of the Ancient One was to cast decidedly Caucasian performer Tilda Swinton as the Tibetan Marvel Comics character. According to Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson, the reason they went with a white woman instead of an Asian actress was to avoid the Dragon Lady stereotype. However, the casting decision inspired a wave of controversy and accusations of whitewashing. Making things even more complicated, Doctor Strange screenwriter C. Robert Cargill also revealed that another reason for the casting was to not offend the Chinese government, which has a very charged history with Tibet. Naturally, this only inspired further uproar. Swinton's casting has become so infamous that even MCU boss Kevin Feige has gone on record to say, "We thought we were being so smart and so cutting edge. We are not going to do the cliche of the wizened, old, wise Asian man." But it was a wake-up call to say, well, wait a minute. Is there any other way to figure it out? Is there any other way to both not fall into the cliche and cast an Asian actor? And the answer to that, of course, is yes. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about the Marvel Cinematic Universe are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.